This video is an overview of Dymension and their DYM token. Dymension is a new, powerful Cosmos chain for launching RollApps with just a few clicks. In this video, we'll talk about what all that means and what exactly Dymension does. We'll go into how you can go about using Dymension and staking their DYM token. Then we'll talk about the tokenomics of DYM. And finally, I'll go into some risks and opportunities associated with Dymension. Welcome back to Dynamo DeFi. My name is Patrick. As a reminder, nothing in this video is financial advice. I talk about a lot of different tokens on this channel, and this is always intended as an overview to teach you about the project, not as a suggestion that you buy. Now let's get into the video. To start, let's talk about what exactly Dymension is. If we go to their website, they brand themselves as the home of the RollApps, and in their words, that is a place for easily deployable and lightning fast app chains called RollApps. And don't worry, we're going to unpack exactly what that means. If you've been watching this channel this year or following the crypto market, you may have heard the term modular blockchain. You may have also heard the term rollups. Dymension fits into both of those frameworks. Modular blockchain, if you're not familiar with what that is basically a custom-built blockchain that picks and chooses the best elements of various components of a blockchain to suit their needs. For example, they choose a certain execution environment like the Ethereum virtual machine or the Move virtual machine, Solana virtual machine, and then they choose a certain settlement layer. Most commonly that's been Ethereum, but in theory it could be something else. And then they choose a certain data availability solution. In the past, many rollups have used Ethereum itself. However, recently Celestia launched, and Celestia has quickly become a popular solution for data availability. Eigenlayer is another well-known solution for data availability. And basically what Dymension is doing is they are building a framework, or have built a framework, that allows developers to easily, with a few clicks, launch these custom app chains. So if you're launching an application like a game or a decentralized exchange that really you want its own chain for it to exist on because you want it to be customized, you want to be able to control the environment, then you can use Dymension to do so. And rather than having to figure out all of the infrastructure details of actually building a blockchain yourself, Dymension takes care of a lot of that. You can pick and choose the ones that are best for you, and then you can actually focus on building the app if you're a developer. To dive into their documents a little more, one way to think of it is as a full stack web applications where users interact with RollApps on the front end, and then Dymension sits on the back end. So this is really a back end technology for developers to use to actually build these different RollApps. And while that might not seem that exciting at first, maybe it is exciting to you, especially if you're a developer, but it might not seem that exciting to you at first. This is actually, I think, probably a pretty powerful way for an application or infrastructure layer to accrue value if it's able to build out its ecosystem. Because you can imagine a scenario where there's thousands of these RollApps launched on Dymension, and then Dymension is just plugging along in the background, actually acting as, how they describe it, basically a similar role to a server actually running these blockchains. And so what Dymension is doing is it's basically building a standardized framework for these custom RollApps to launch and then to communicate with each other. And then as people are bridging funds between these RollApps, that's going through Dymension, which is going to accrue value to Dymension. And then ultimately these RollApps will also be settling onto Dymension, making Dymension a very powerful settlement layer. And so high level, what Dymension is ultimately providing are three things. First is security. So if you're launching your own app chain, you have, again, some sort of app like a game or a decentralized exchange that really needs its own chain, then if you use the Dymension software development kit, then you're actually inheriting security from Dymension. So RollApps are secured by the validators on Dymension rather than you needing to bootstrap your own validator set. You're also getting interoperability because all of these RollApps can seamlessly connect with each other using the IBC connection to Dymension. IBC is the way that different Cosmos chains interact with each other, and again, Dymension is kind of standardizing that to allow people to easily launch these RollApps. And then finally, you're receiving liquidity because these various different RollApps that launch can actually tap into the liquidity of the Dymension hub using their automated market maker. And so while Dymension is relatively new, the ultimate vision is that it sits at the center of this ecosystem of thousands of different RollApps that are all tapping into it for security, liquidity, and interoperability. Pretty cool. As far as how you can actually use Dymension yourself, Well, again, it is ultimately geared towards developers. And so if you're a developer, you can build a roll app on there. However, I'm aware that most people who watch this channel are probably not going to do that. So I'm not going to go into a full tutorial of how to launch a roll app, but you can refer to the Dymension docs if you're interested in that. What many of you may be interested in doing is actually staking Dymension. And the reason you might want to do that is, first off, they have a pretty good staking APR right now. So if you decide to invest in Dymension, again, this isn't advocacy that you do, but if you decide to, you can stake it and earn 29% APR. On top of that, I believe that Dymension is probably going to be one of the top chains for receiving airdrops in the future. There are a lot of addresses that already are in the network simply because they did a large airdrop. However, I think that there's going to be some good airdrops coming to DYM stakers in the future. And the reason for that is that, again, there's hundreds, probably thousands of RollApps that are going to launch on this network. And a lot of those RollApps are going to have their own token, and they're going to want to somehow bootstrap a community for the token. And the common way that people have been doing that, especially so far in 2024, is actually by airdropping that token to other people who are staking for other networks. For example, Dymension was airdropped to people who were staking Celestia among other networks. And I think the same thing is going to happen for a lot of these rollups that ultimately launch on Dymension. If you want to stake with Dymension, the first thing you'll have to do is, of course, acquire some DYM tokens, and then you'll have to get them into your wallet that's connected to the Dymension portal. You can actually use your MetaMask for this. However, the process of acquiring and bridging those tokens is slightly complicated, but I'll be making another video going through in detail of how to actually acquire these tokens and get them into your wallet. But once you have the tokens in your wallet, actually staking is pretty straightforward. Go to the Dymension portal, portal.dymension.xyz, hover over Dymension, and then select staking. And then you'll see all the different validators here. And I don't think it matters that much which one you use. Some of these might be run by protocols that offer their own airdrops. But as long as you choose one with a relatively low commission, you can see that most are 5%, then I think that most of these would be fine. I'm personally going to choose to stake with validators whose mission I support. And so, for example, HFA X DeFi Dojo, this is run by a few of my friends, other YouTubers who cover DeFi, Taiki, and then Steven the Calculator guy run this one together. And so I'm going to support them. I'm going to stake it, and I'm just going to stake 1 DYM in this wallet. I'm not suggesting you stake 1 DYM. If you want to qualify for airdrops and things, I would say probably I would try to get at least $100, if not, a few $100. But this is just a demonstration. And so I signed the message, and you can see the transaction is in progress. And look, already delegated successfully. I have 1 staked DYM. And again, if I wanted to unstake, I could go to unstake right away. I'm going to have to wait 21 days. And so I would just select 1, and I would click on unstake, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to unstake. As far as the tokenomics of DYM, if we go over to CoinGecko, then we can see that the current price is around $7.65, which gives it a market cap of $1.1 billion, rank 70 on CoinGecko. So note that this is already quite high for a token that just recently launched. I think that DYM has a pretty powerful value proposition, and it's getting a lot of attention. But keep in mind that it's already relatively high, and it has already gone up a decent amount since launch. The fully diluted valuation is even higher at $7.6 billion. And that's because the circulating supply is only 146 million DYM tokens compared to a total supply of 1 billion. This is also relatively low float. Keep in mind, this is fairly common for new layer 1s that launch because they're going to want to have high rewards in the first year to encourage people to buy the token and stake it, and to encourage validators to secure the network. That being said, you still have to be careful of inflation rates being diluted, especially over a long period of time. If we actually look at the inflation schedule over here on token unlocks, by the way, great app, token.unlocks.app, then we can see that again, only 15% is unlocked. And the inflation rate for the first year actually doesn't seem that terrible, right? It looks like there will be, currently there's again 146 million unlocked. Up until next February, there will be around 190 195 million DIM unlocked. So some inflation, but not completely outrageous. But then that's when it really starts to pick up, because that's when you have your backers and your core contributors start to get unlocks. And you can see that by, for example, 2027, there's going to be significantly more DIM in circulation. And of course, you have to reward the core contributors and people who bet on the project early when it could have been worth nothing. Naturally, they're going to be able to sell their tokens at some point. But keep in mind, especially if you're planning on holding it, say, into 2025, that you're going to have a lot of tokens that were either acquired for free or at a much cheaper price coming onto the market. As far as the utility of the token, the first one is, again, like we talked about, that you can stake it for yield and airdrops, and that it's actually securing all of these various uses of the network. So you're going to have all these different RollApps, and DIM is providing security, which adds a lot of value to it. And then additionally, all of these swaps that are being used for moving funds between these different chains, those people are going to pay a fee, and those fees are going to go to a combination of burning DIM tokens and paying out yield to DIM stakers. And so I think that that's pretty powerful on its own, but on top of that, they also have a supply lockup, because RollApps will have to bond DIM, which reduces the circulating supply, enhancing the network's security and stability. And with less circulating supply, it means that it's easier for the price of the token to go up. To close out the video, let's talk about some of the risks and opportunities of Dymension. First, we'll start with the opportunities. I would say that this vision of having thousands of RollApps that are all settling onto and moving funds between Dymension, if they are able to execute it, is something that would accrue a lot of value. Dymension is going to sit at the center of an expanding network, and as more things join the network, the value of that network is going to increase exponentially. And they have a pretty good system set up with these tokenomics and with this value they're providing for actually capturing value from that network. The risks are, I would say there's two main risks that I'd see. The first is this tokenomics, right? Even though they have a good source of demand, there is a lot of supply that still has to come onto the market, and fully diluted valuation is truthfully pretty high. That doesn't mean that it can't go higher. I do believe crypto is in a bull market, and it's easy to imagine something like this becoming more valuable, especially if they're able to gain traction. However, that brings us to the second risk I see, which is that this is a very new technology. And while the value proposition seems good on its face, it remains to be seen just how many developers will actually launch RollApps and whether that vision of having thousands or tens of thousands of RollApps will ultimately play out. If you want to learn more about crypto trends, narratives, on-chain analysis, and how to do your own research, then I have a weekly newsletter, dynamodefi.substack.com. Subscribe down in the description. We've been talking about things like modular blockchains and airdrops in here for months, so you can get ahead of the curve by subscribing. That's all for today. For more videos like this one, be sure to like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Dynamo DeFi.